When is a serial killer not a serial killer? When they're part of the mob. Today, we're going to go over Roy DeMeo. Welcome, angry faithful. Yes, that's right. We're going to go over Roy DeMeo, who was I, he was part of the mob, but I think he was actually a crime boss. He had his own crew, uh, and he disposed of bodies and stuff. But let's get into it. Roy Albert DeMeo was born September 7th, 1940, in the flats of Brooklyn to a working class Italian immigrant family of Napoleon origins. The fourth of five children of Eleanor and Anthony DeMeo, a laundry company delivery man. DeMeo graduated from James Madison High School in 1959, the same high school where economist Waller Block and future Senator Bernie Sanders were among his graduating classmates. Between the ages of 15 to 22, he was he started working at a local grocery store where he trained as a apprentice butcher. Roy's older brother, Anthony Frank Chubby DeMeo, a U.S. Marine Corps corporal, was killed during actions in the Korean War on April 23rd, 1951, at age 20. His father died of a heart attack on December 12th, 1960, when Roy was 19. His mother subsequently returned to Italy with Roy's youngest brother to live with relatives in Naples. Now starting his criminal career, Roy DeMeo was initially an associate with the Flat Carneza faction of the Lunchnese crime family, which controlled tow trucking companies, junkyards, and car theft operations in the section of Brooklyn. Anthony Gigi, a soldier in the Galbino crime family, noticed DeMeo in 1966 and told him that he could make more money with a successful business if he would come to work directly with the Gambinos. Throughout the late 1960s, DeMeo's organized crime prospects increased twofold. He continued in a loan sharking business with Gigi and became, I wonder if that's actually, I think I'm pronouncing this right, Stephen Hawking from the grave. Give me a little
Gaggy.
Gaggy. That's Gaggy, not Gigi. Gaggy began developing a crew of the young men involved in car theft. It was the collective of criminals that become known to the underworld and law enforcement circles as the DeMeo crime family, or the DeMeo crew. The first member of the DeMeo crew was 16-year-old Chris Rosenberg, who met DeMeo in 1966 when he was dealing marijuana at the Carres gas station. DeMeo helped Rosenberg increase his business and profits by loaning him money so that he could deal larger amounts. By 1972, Rosenberg had introduced his friends to DeMeo, and they began working for him as well. The additional members of the crew came to include Joseph and Patrick Testa, Anthony Sneers, Richard and Franklin Dinino, Stephen Hawking's from the grave,
Dino,
Henry Burrell, and Joseph Dracula Golem. We're gonna do another Stephen Hawking speech.
Guglielmo,
Dracula, Guglielmo, DeMeo's cousin, and later Vito Arena and Carlo Profia. DeMeo joined a Brooklyn credit union that same year, gaining a position in the board of directors shortly afterwards. He utilized his position to launder money, earned through his illegal ventures. He also introduced colleagues at the credit union to a lucrative side business, laundering the money of drug dealers he had become acquainted with. DeMeo also built up his loan sharking business with funds stolen from the credit union reserves. DeMeo collected a collection of loan shark customers while still primarily those in the car industry. Soon included other business such as a dentist office, an abortion clinic, restaurants, and flea markets. He also listed as an employee of Brooklyn company named SC Sportswear Corporation, and frequently told his neighbors he worked in construction, food retail, and used cars business. Okay. In 1974, a conflict that had erupted between DeMeo's crew and Andre Katz, a young auto repair shop owner who was partnered with DeMeo in the stolen car ring, and it had continued to escalate. In January 1975, Katz visited the Brooklyn District Attorney offices and voluntarily provided them information on Chris Rosenberg, who was heavily involved in the auto theft part of his crew. DeMeo learned about the meeting immediately after it happened. Meeting immediately happening after it happened. Wow, that whole phrase right there, and it's only 4 words. Stumped me. Sorry, everybody. From an auto crimes detectives on his payroll. Roy ordered DeMeo's crew associated Henry Boyle to contact a female acquaintance, probably Judith Quinzel. Ooh, that's Quinzel, Harley Quinn. Hmm. And if you don't know comics, you don't know who Quinzel is. About being used as bait. In May, Katz appeared before Brooklyn grand jury and divulged what he knew about the DeMeo crew's illegal activities. On June 13th, 1975, Quinzel was used to successfully lure Katz to an apartment complex for what he thought was a date, where upon arrival, he was immediately abducted by the members of DeMeo's crew. He was then took into a meat department in a supermarket in Rockaway Beach, Queens, where he was stabbed multiple times in the heart and then the back by a butcher's knife. After being decapitated, Katz's head was then crushed when it was put through a machine normally used to compact cardboard. The body parts were wrapped in plastic bags and then disposed of in the supermarket dumpster, where they were discovered days later when a pedestrian walking his dog spotted one of Katz's legs lying on the curb near the store. Police reported to the press that a ghastly, brutal killing had occurred, but that was the extent of the information given. The body was identified as Andre Katz 2 days later through use of dental records. The head was crushed. I wonder how they did that, because apparently everything was crushed. I mean, they could identify from fingertips and everything, but it's just one of those curiosity. Anyways, the Gemini method, as in 1970s, continued. DeMeo cultivated his followers into a crew of experts experienced with the process of murdering, dismembering victims, with the exception of killing intended to send a message to anyone who would hinder their criminal activities or murder that presented no other alternative. A set and method of executions was established by DeMeo and his crew to ensure that his victims would be dispatched quickly and then made to disappear. The style of execution was dubbed the Gemini method, after the Gemini Lounge, the primary hangout of the DeMeo crew, also well as the site where most of the crew victims were killed. The process of the Gemini method, as revealed by multiple crew members and associates who became government witnesses in the early 1980s, was to lure the victim through the side door of the lounge into the apartment in the back portion of the building. At this point, the crew member, almost always DeMeo, according to the crew member turned government witness Frank DeMeo, would approach with a silenced pistol, a suppressed pistol, in which in one hand and a towel in the other, shooting the victim in the head, then wrapping the towel around the victim's head's wound like a turban to snatch the blood flow. Immediately after, another member of the crew, originally Chris Rosenberg, up until 1979's murder, according to the government witness testimony, would stab the victim in the heart to prevent more blood from pumping out of the gunshot wound. By then, the victim would be dead, at which point the body would be stripped of clothing, dragged to the bathroom where the remains blood drained out or congealed within the body. This was the estimate. This was to eliminate the mess in the next step. When the crew would place the body onto plastic sheets, lay them out into the main room, and proceed to dismember it, cutting off the arms, legs, and heads. The body parts would be put into bags, placed in a cardboard box, and sent to Fountain Avenue dump in Brooklyn. So many tons of garbage were dropped each day at the dump that it would be nearly impossible for the bodies to be discovered. During the initial stages of an early 1980s federal state task force targeting the DeMeo crew, a plan by authorities to excavate sections of the dump to locate the remains of the victims was aborted when it was deemed too costly and unlikely to locate any meaningful evidence. The landfill opposite of Starlit City apartment complex on Pennsylvania Avenue in heavily African-American East New York section of Brooklyn across to the Belt Park was closed in 1985 and capped over since. All signs and odors that the landfill existed is gone, replaced by a parkland. Wow, there's probably a lot of there's probably a lot of bodies in that landfill or parkland. Some victims were killed in other ways for various reasons. At times, suspected informants or those who committed an act of disrespecting against any of the members of the crew or their superiors had their bodies left in the street in New York to serve as a message and a warning. There was also occasions where it would not be possible to lure the intended victims into the Gemini Lounge, in which case their location would be used. A cabin cruiser owned by Richard DeMeo was used at least once, occasionally to dispose of the remains. In the latter half of 1975, DeMeo became a silent partner in the Peep Show and Prostitutes establishment in Bricktown, New Jersey, after the owner of the business became unable to pay his loan shark debts. DeMeo also began dealing with, oh my God, really? Okay, it's part of the thing. DeMeo also began dealing with bestiality and child pornography, which he sold to his New Jersey establishment as a connection he had in Rhode Island. When Gaggy, I'm gonna mess up his name again. Hold on.
Gaggy.
Yeah, Gaggy. When Gaggy found out about DeMeo's involvement in such taboo films, he ordered DeMeo to stop under the threat of death. However, DeMeo defied Gaggy and continued the practice. Gaggy did not retaliate, and according to his nephew, Dominic Mangallo, the subject was never mentioned again as long as DeMeo continued making payments to Gaggy. Should have shot him. Sorry. I don't deal with like child stuff or even dogs. God, bestiality bullshit. Okay. DeMeo also dealt with narcotics despite Gambino's family strict forbidding such activities. He financed a major operation corbing Colombia's marijuana, which was uploaded in offshore freights and sold to various auto shops in Carniza, and also sold cocaine out of the Gemini Lounge. 1975 drew to a close, DeMeo was the subject in an Internal Revenue Service investigating into his income. Months earlier, the Bureau of Brooklyn Credit Union had been pushed into insolvency as a result of DeMeo and his colleagues plundering of its finance. As a result, DeMeo quit the credit union before an indictment could be handed down against him. He utilized false affidavits from business owners by friends and his acquaintances, claiming he was on the payroll as an employee. These affidavits served to account for some of his income, allowing him to reach the settlement with the IRS. It's the only people you can't stop, the IRS. DeMeno's source of income also, while as his crew continued to grow, by July 1976, DeMeo added an automotive firm by the name of Team Auto Wholesalers to his loan shark customers. The owner of Team Auto, Matthew Rega, also purchased stolen vehicles from the crew and sold them off at a New Jersey car lot that he owned. He also involved himself in hijacking delivery trucks from JFK International Airport. His crew now included Edward Danny Grillo, a hijacker who had just been released from prison. In the fall of 1976, the Galbino family went through a massive change when its boss, Carlos Galbino, died of natural causes. Paul Castillo was named the boss with, I'm going to have to Stephen Hawking this. Stephen Hawking from the grave. Please help me out with this wordage.
Agnello Dela Cruz.
Agnello Dela Cruz retained the position of underboss. The implications of this were twofold for DeMeo. Giga was elevated to the business of Cargamia? Oh, Capo, taking over the crew of men of Castile previously headed. This promotion was beneficial to DeMeo, whose mentor was not even closer to the family's leadership. Another advantage was that with Gambino decreased, the new associates would be eligible for membership into the family. Gaston did not immediately open the books for the new members, opting instead to promote existing members and shuffle around the crew's leadership. He also allegedly opposed the idea of DeMeo being made. Castiglione involved himself in white-collar crime and looked down on street-level members such as DeMeo. Additionally, Castiglione, I'm messing up his name. Sorry, people. Hold on.
Castellano.
Felt DeMeo was uncontrollable. Giga. Keep on messing up his name.
Gaggy.
Gaggy's attempt to persuade Castellino to make DeMeo were continually rejected. By 1977, DeMeo became distraught by this situation and searched for opportunities that would ensure larger returns for his superiors. DeMeo sourced his induction into the Gambino family by forming an alliance with the Irish American gang known as the Westies. This is where we get him at. The leader of a rival Irish gang, Mickey Spillane. I'm totally wrong. Who caused delays in the construction of the Jacob K. Jarvis Convention Center, much to the frustration of the Gammy boss, Paul Castillo, who had part of the project. After the unsolved murder spin in May 1977, the Westies leader, James Conona, assembled to control the Irish Moms racket in the west side of Manhattan. DeMeo sensed an opportunity to create a vast source of income for the Gambino crime family, persuaded Gigai to consider a partnership with the Westies. Shortly afterwards, Kokona and his second in command, Mickey Featherstone, were called into the meeting with the Castellanos. Anyways, in which they agreed to become a de facto arm of the Gambino family and shared 10% of all profits. In exchange, the Westies would be privy to several lucrative union deals and make on murder contracts for the family. It was a pivotal role. It was a pivotal role in the Westies Gambino alliance that reported convicted Castellano to give DeMeo his button or formally induct him into the family. DeMeo was made in 1977, mid 1977, and put in charge of handling all family business with the Westies. He was ordered to get permission before committing any murders and avoid drug dealing. DeMeo's crew, however, continued to sell large amounts of cocaine, marijuana, and a various of narcotic bills. DeMeo also continued to commit unsanctioned killings, such as in the 1977 double homicide of Jonathan Quinn, a car theft suspect of cooperating with law enforcement, and Craig Golden, Quinn's 19-year-old girlfriend. DeMeo's crew dumped the bodies in a location where they would be discovered to severe a warning against cooperating with authorities. In 1978, Frederick Denomi, previously DeMeo's Stephen Hawking's from the grave. Help me out on this one.
Chauffeur.
Okay. I don't know why that was hard. Joined the crew. DeMeo and his crew murdered Edward Grillo, who had fallen into a heavily debt with DeMeo and was believed to be becoming suspectable to the police. I'm just going to let Stephen Hawking do this whole thing because it's big words.
Susceptible to police coercion.
Oh, okay. Grillo, who was dismembered and disposed of later with the crew victims, was the first known occurrence of initial crew discipline. The next member to be killed was Rosenberg, who held up a drug deal with the Cuban man living in Florida, and then murdered him and his associates when they traveled to New York to complete the sale. The Cuban had connections with the Cuban drug cartel, raising the possibility of violence between the Gambino family and the Cubans unless Rosenberg was dealt with. DeMeo was ordered to kill Rosenberg, but stalled for weeks. During this period, DeMeo committed his most public murder. The victim was a college student with no criminal ties with Dominic Raggini, who is paying for his tuition as a door-to-door salesman. DeMeo saw Rassini's parking outside of Madison Park, Long Island house, assuming he was a Cuban assassin. He actually, I'm sorry I shouldn't laugh, but he accidentally killed someone just that he thought, okay. DeMeo and his crew members, Joseph Galamino and Freddie DeMeo, proceeded Gagsini? Stephen Hawking is from the Italian's not my best subject.
Ragucci.
Okay. In a 7-mile car chase on Route 110 through Annaville and Farmingsdale, after which the student was shot to death by DeMeo. After returning home and gathering his family, DeMeo drove them out to Long Island and left them in a hotel in upstate New York for 2 weeks. According to DeMeo's son, Albert, he started crying when he discovered he had murdered an innocent teenager and did not eat for several days afterwards. The post-execution of Rassini also put a strain on DeMeo's relationship with his wife, Galdi, who had previously been able to ignore her husband's criminal activities. Gaggies was infuriated the murder of Gaggi. I'm going to ruin his name. Hold on.
Ragucci.
And ordered DeMeo to kill Rosenberg before there were any other innocent victims. On May 11th, 1979, Rosenborg reported to the Gemini clubhouse for a crew for the crew's usual Friday night meeting. Shortly after his arrival, DeMeo quickly fired a single bullet into the unsuspected Rosenberg's head. Usually ice cold DeMeo hesitated with a still living Rosenberg managed to raise from the floor to one knee. But Anthony Stinner moved in to finish him off with 4 shots to the head. Unlike Grillo, Rosenborg's body was not dismembered and made to disappear. The Colombians had demanded that his murderer make the newspapers. DeMeo's men placed Rosenberg's body in his car and left it on the side of Cross Bay Boulevard near the Gateway National Wildlife Refuge and Broad Channel, Queens, to be found. Albert DeMeo later recounted that Rosenberg's murder affected his father deeply. That when DeMeo came home after the killing, he went into his study room and didn't come out for days. After Rosenberg's murder, DeMeo spent 6 weeks hiding out with Galmino in a safe house near 42nd Street in Times Square, Manhattan, growing a full beard and disguising himself with a baseball cap and sunglasses when out in public. The Empire Boulevard operation. As 1979 continued, DeMeo began to explain his business activities, in particular his auto theft operations, was soon to become the largest in New York City's history, dubbed the Empire Boulevard operation by FBI agents. The operation consisted of hundreds of stolen cars being shipped from the port of Newark, New Jersey, to Kuwait and Puerto Rico. DeMeo put together a group of 5 active partners in the operation, all of whom earned the approximately $30,000 a week each in profit. Kind of curious. I'm going to look at $30,000 in 1979. See how much they made. Basically, they made $131,520 in 2020 inflation. Still, that's wow. Even just the 30,000 a week, but 100. Wow, about 100 grand on costing like 150. Alongside from stolen automobiles, DeMeo was also shipping cigarettes and pornographic magazines to the Middle East, which, if you don't know, reason why you would do that in the Middle East, the pornographic magazines is at that time frame, and even in this time frame, pornographic material is still illegal in most of the parts of the Middle East. Aside from the active partners, other associates and crew members performed the actual stealing of automobiles off the street of New York. Among these associates was Vito Arena, a longtime car thief and armed robber who began working with the DeMeo in 1978 after murdering his old partner. Like Denino, Arena became closely involved with the DeMeo crew by the end of 1970s. In 1979, the scheme was nearly stopped by legitimate car dealers who threatened to inform the police. He was murdered alongside with an uninvolved acquaintance before he could provide law enforcement authorities with information. Late 1979, DeMeo and Nino Gigi, just go Gigi, become involved in a conflict with James Aponino and James Aponino Jr., 2 made Galbino members in Gigi's crew. They were potential uncles and cousins, respectively, in the corrupt former NYPD department. Detective Louis Espinino, whose father Ralph, brother of St. James Sr., was also made a member of the Galbino family. James Espinino met with Paul Castellano and associated with DeMeo and Gaggi for drug deals, which carried a potential death. Castellano to whom Gigi was closely allied, sided against Espinino in the situation and gave Gigi permission to do what he pleased. He and DeMeo shot the two to death in Esperanto's Jr.'s car en route to Gemini Lounge, October 1st, 1971. A witness driving by right as the shots were fired within the parked car managed to alert the nearby police, who arrested Gigi after the shootout between the two that left Gigi with a bullet wound in his neck. Since DeMeo had split up with Gigi as left the scene, he was not arrested and identified by the witness. Gigi was charged with murder and attempted murder by the police officer, but through jury temperature was convicted only of assault and given 5 to 15 year sentence in federal prison. DeMeo murdered the witness shortly after Gigi's sentence in March 1980. If he did that, he'd been prosecuted. But anyways, the Empire Boulevard operation had continued to expand throughout 1979 into the 1980s until the warehouse serving as a headquarters was raided by agents from New York branch of the FBI in the summer of 1980. The FBI been surveying the warehouse and some of the men uploading vehicles there, and had shortly thereafter obtained a search warrant. Henry Braley and Frederick DeMeo were arrested in May 1981 for their roles in the operation. But there was not enough evidence to arrest any of the active partners. DeMeo ordered Borello and DeMeo to plead guilty to the charges in hopes that it would stop any further investigation into the activities by the FBI and other law enforcement agencies. The death and downfall. By 1982, the FBI was investigating the enormous number of missing and murdered persons who were linked to DeMeo. I'm sorry. Or who had last been seen entering the Gemini Lounge. Around this time, an FBI bug in the home of Gambino's family, Capo, Angelo Rigoro, picked up a conversation between Rigoro and Gene Gotti. Is that the Gene Gotti? Yeah, Gene Gotti. Okay. The brother of John Gotti. In the conversation, it was discussed that Paul Castino had put out a hit on DeMeo, but was having difficulty finding someone who's willing to do the job. Gene Gotti mentioned this to his brother. John was worried about taking the contract, as DeMeo had an army of killers around him. It is also mentioned in the same secretly recorded conversation that at the time, John had killed fewer than 10 people, while DeMeo had killed 37 that he had known about, according to the mob turncoat Sammy Gravano. Sorry. Never eat and do these things at the same time.
Gravano.
Eventually, the contract was given to Frank DeCino, but DeCino and his crew could not get to DeMeo either. DeCino allegedly handed the job to DeMeo's own men. Wow. Okay, let's get interesting. DeMeo's son Albert wrote in his final about his final days. DeMeo was paranoid and knew that he would be killed soon. In his final days, DeMeo was seen wearing a leather jacket with a shotgun concealed underneath. DeMeo considered faking his own death by having his son shoot him and laying low. On January 10th, 1983, DeMeo went to a crew member Patty Tesla's house for a meeting with his men. That night, he failed to attend his daughter's Donnie's birthday party. which caused his family to be suspicious. Albert DeMeo later found Roy's personal belongings, such as his watch, wallet, and ring, in his study room, and a Catholic pamphlet. 10 days later, on January 20th, DeMeo's Cadillac Coupe de Ville was discovered in the parking lot of uh, Benera Boat Club in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn. The car was towed to a nearby police station where it was searched by Organized Crime Control Bureau detectives. DeMeo's personal frozen body was found in the trunk with a chandelier on top of it. It had been shot multiple times in the he had been shot multiple times in the head, and a bullet wound in his hand, assuming that law enforcement to be a reflex defensive wound caused by the killer's open fire on him. The task force investigated DeMeo's crew, theorizing that DeMeo was set up by a similar manner to how it was set up by Rosenberg, and that Gigi, Testa, and Center presented when he was killed. On April 1984, Colombo crime family soldier Ralph Scapo was overheard explaining to his associate that DeMeo had been killed by his own family because they merely suspected that he would not be able to stand up to legal charges that resulted from his stolen car ring. According to Scopa, Castellano also had put DeMeo away because he was crazy and had cast iron balls. Oh, he was a tough guy, tougher than him. So Albert DeMeo believed that his father was killed by members of his own crew. Anthony Gaspipe Casto claimed that Castellano ordered John Gotti and Frank Dica to kill DeMeo, but they were unable to get close to him. DeCosta suggested Costa and Costa could do it, as he knew Anthony Shedder and Joseph Tessa well. Costa ordered them to kill DeMeo, assuring them that there would be no retribution, and that afterwards they would be with him and the Lanchese family. DeMeo visited the home of Patty Testa to collect some money that he was owed. Joey Tester and Sinter, and there's tongue-twisting words, were both there as DeMeo sat down and waited for a coffee and shot him dead. Ironically, according to Castellano, they're so close to the same name. Ordering DeMeo's execution sealed his own fate, as Gotti and Decino were planning to kill him, and would do so on December 16th, 1985. Castillo said that they would never have dared to move against Castillo while DeMeo was still alive. In the aftermath, in 1984, a 78-count incident was filed against 24 defendants, including the surviving members of the DeMeo crew. Capo Nino Gaggi and Gambolino crime family head of Paul Castellano. Charges related to auto theft, racketeering, and drug trafficking. Paul Castellano was indicted for ordering the murder of DeMeo, as well as hosting other crimes, but was killed in December 1985 while out on bail in the middle of the first trial. The member was ordered by John Gotti, who thus became the new boss of the Gambino family. After the death of Castellano, Nino Gaggi became the lead defendant, but too soon. But he died later of natural causes. In March 1986, 6 of the guilty members, with Henry Boyle and other persons found guilty of 2 counts of murder, they were found guilty of murdering 2 people who threatened to expose the car theft ring. In June 1989, 9 additional members, including Anthony Cinder and Joseph Tessa, were found guilty. At the sentencing, Center and Testa were given life sentence for the murder and additional 20 years for racketeering. Prosecutors William Mack Jr. said the Roy DeMeo crew is the most violent crew ever prosecuted in federal court, as far as my knowledge, and said DeMeo engaged in wholesale slaughter. The convictions later secure in large part by testimony of former members Frederick DeNome and Dominique Magallo, as well as Vito Arena. Magallo turned when he learned that the contract on his life and was placed in witness protection program for 20 years of his testimony. Richard DeMeo was killed in 1984, and Frederick DeMeo later died in what was ruled as a suicide. He probably fell off the roof with five to six stab wounds. It happens. It's understandable. Vito Arena left New York in 1989 after serving 6 years of an 18-year sentence after his testimony. He was killed in 1991 robbery in Texas. The Gemini Lounge later became a storefront church. DeMeo is the subject of the 1992 book Murder Machine by Jerry Capsby and Janine Mustaine. Roy DeMeo's son Albert also wrote a book about the life growing up called For the Sins of My Father, published in 2002. DeMeo is portrayed by Michael Morrow in the 2001 film Boss of Bosses. Ray Liotta plays DeMeo in the 2012 film adaptation of Anthony Bourneau's book Richard Carlson. But yeah, apparently good Lord. There's a list of murders committed by the DeMeo crew family. Yeah, most of them are the people that I've already talked about. Jeez, but he probably had more than they're saying here. Prior about 60 to 70 people that he murdered in his time span as a criminal. So, but anyways, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. Please leave something out there in the ether that someone's listening. And thank you all that are actually commenting on our stuff on YouTube. I try to get back to you guys as soon as possible, but life happens. But thank you all for leaving the comments, and I enjoy each and every one of them, even though some of them are kind of cryptic, like one that said started at 7 minutes. So thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. Goodbye.